They say there is a temple where the dead never rest, where every night the corpses rise and walk in silent darkness. Would you have the courage to enter? Because not everyone who walks in ever breathes their way back out again. All right, shall we start now? Night within the temple of the walking dead. They say that deep in the jungle of forgotten kingdoms, beyond where the rivers turn black with rot and moonlight, never reaches the forest floor. There stands an ancient stone temple. Its towers are cracked and strangled with roots thick as oxen's necks. Its walls carved with nameless gods whose faces have been eaten away by time and monsoon rains. But it is not the silence of abandonment that keeps even the boldest hunters away. No, it is the whispers carried on warm winds at dusk, stories of what lies within. On certain nights, when the sky hangs heavy with clouds like bruised flesh and thunder rumbles far beyond the horizon, torches can be seen flickering behind shattered windows. And if you step close enough, if you dare creep through the outer courtyards littered with moss-choked statues, you will hear it. Footsteps, soft, dragging, hundreds of them, shuffling in patient rhythm upon the cold stone floors within. The dead walk here. Their shadows flit across cracked pillars, heads bowed as they limp between vine-dripped altars, arms dangling at their sides, skin gray with death and streaked with streaks of dark mold. Some were the remnants of embroidered robes, sleeves hanging in tatters from skeletal arms. Others are clad in funeral wrappings, stiff with dried blood. Their feet make no sound upon the mossy stones, except for the wet scrape of bone against lichen. In the grand hall at the heart of the temple, where moonlight seeps through a broken dome to reveal carvings of writhing demons and eyeless gods, the dead gather in silent procession. They drift around a raised obsidian dais upon which stands a throne carved from black stone veined with red. Upon this throne sits a figure so still he seems carved himself, head crowned with a circlet of jagged gold. His eyes are two empty sockets crusted with dried resin. His lips have withered back to expose a rictus grin that has lasted centuries. He watches them, night after night, for these are his worshippers, trapped between death and dust, their souls bound forever to their rotting flesh by runes etched in blood and grave ash upon every stone of this temple, bound by a curse whispered in a forgotten tongue that no god or demon dares to lift. They walk and walk and walk, each step an unending prayer of pain. Outside, thunder rolls, shaking the jungle canopy. Rain begins to fall, warm and heavy, drumming upon moss and leaf, sliding down cracked temple walls in rivulets of dark water, the dead do not pause. They drift through the storm breeze, blowing through shattered windows. The scent of rain mingling with the reek of decay, blooming from their open wounds. And if you listen closely, beneath the sigh of rain and roll of distant thunder, you will hear them whisper as they walk, "Free us, free us, free us." But no freedom comes in this temple, only walking, only darkness, only the silent gaze of a corpse king who watches his faithful dance, their unending dance beyond death itself. ChatGPT said, DIY La Fan 2, approximately 500 T. Nay MC Troktip T Fan 1. Ju, Jing, Master Storyteller, Pseudoluch, SP. Dark History, Horror Storytelling. 2. G. Ting. An. Fan. 2. Gi. LCBC. English title: The Wandering Treasure Seeker. Raffaello's Arrival. His name was Raffaello di Castamar, known from the vine-choked ports of the southern isles to the frozen passes of the northern steppes. Some called him a merchant prince, others a liar and grave robber. But all agreed on one thing: he feared neither man nor God in his endless hunt for forbidden treasures. He had come to the jungle seeking the obsidian eyes, twin orbs carved from volcanic glass, rumored to grant visions of all mortal futures to whoever dared gaze within them. Temple of the Walking Dead. For weeks, he pushed deeper into the jungle. His guides deserted him at the first glimpse of the moss-choked ziggurats rising above the canopy, weeping and kissing his feet in final farewell. Undeterred, he pressed on alone, hacking through vines thick with biting ants, wading rivers choked with the bloated carcasses of crocodiles rotting under the green scum of stagnant pools. At dawn, on the 13th day, he emerged into a clearing choked with fallen idols, each face worn blank by centuries of monsoon rain. And there it loomed, the temple itself, its towers black with mold. Stone steps buried beneath centuries of rotting leaf and bone fragments, scattered like offerings before a slaughter altar. Raffaello wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers trembling with greed. The humid air burned his lungs with each breath, heavy with the scent of decay blooming from the forest floor. Overhead, vultures wheeled in silence, their shadows drifting across the broken statues like dark omens. He approached the temple's entrance, a yawning doorway framed by columns carved with twisted figures. Men flayed alive, women bent backwards in agony, children with their mouths sewn shut. The lintel above was etched with ancient runes half-erased by lichen, their meaning lost to priests whose bones now fed the worms. But Raffaello felt no fear. Only anticipation coursed through his veins like molten gold. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a small vial of dark resin. Uncorking it, he dabbed the thick, sweet-smelling oil onto his temples and wrists, a ritual protection. Taught by a witch he once seduced in the salt dunes of Amaranth. Against curses of lesser gods, she had whispered, her teeth black with lotus sap, "This will shield you. But if the dead themselves guard what you seek, pray your soul is too filthy for them to keep." He chuckled at the memory and stepped forward. Darkness swallowed him like a closing jaw. The air within was cold and damp, heavy with a metallic reek of old blood and the sour rot of abandoned tombs. He raised his lantern high. Its trembling glow revealed towering pillars wrapped in tangled roots, and beyond them, the grand hall where shadows drifted slowly across cracked marble floors. And there, he saw them, figures moving in the gloom, silent, endless. The dead walking in patient circles around a black throne. Raffaello's breath caught in his throat, a thrill of dread and triumph crashing through him. He tightened his grip on the lantern, eyes gleaming with hunger. "The eyes are here," he whispered to himself. The temple's legend, a cult beyond death long before. Raffaello's lantern ever cast trembling light upon the temple's rotting pillars. Long before even the oldest village elders whispered its name in dread, this place had another title: the House of Endless Servants. It was built by a cult so ancient their true name is now lost to both scripture and demon alike. They worshipped no sun god nor rain goddess. Their devotion was given only to Zalakta, Lord of still flesh, a deity neither living nor dead, but trapped forever in the silent agony between. The cult believed that death was not an end, nor even a passage, but a chain to be locked tight around a soul, so it could serve for eternity. They taught that flesh should never rot to nothing, that bones should never lie silent beneath the earth. Instead, they devised rituals to bind spirits back into their bodies after breath had ceased, weaving incantations in languages older than moonlight, carving runes into flesh with obsidian blades dipped in sacrificial bile. For centuries, they gathered slaves from distant lands, dragging them, screaming through jungle paths, into this stone prison. Some they flayed alive, offering their skins to Zalakta as banners upon the temple walls. Others were forced to drink potions of rotting lotus and poison sap that stopped their hearts without bursting their blood vessels, leaving their corpses supple for binding rituals. It is said that upon the black throne sat the High Seer, a priestess whose eyes were sewn shut with gold wire, so she could see only the shadow world. She would slit her wrists each dawn, anointing the throne with her blood to feed the spell. Etched into its base, runes coiled in tight spirals that forced every dead soul back into its corpse, bending their will to her command. Thus the temple was guarded by the walking dead, men, women, and children alike, forever drifting through its dark halls, their flesh preserved with resins that smelled of burnt honey and bitter smoke, their spirits screaming silently within rotting husks as they served the priestess in unending worship. The legend says that the cult fell when rival priests from the mountain kingdoms raised armies to burn their sacred cities. The temple was sealed with curses etched upon iron plates driven into its gates. But nothing was ever done to free the souls trapped within. For what rival cult would waste power liberating the damned? Better their pain remain, said the conquerors, as proof that our gods are stronger. And so centuries passed. Vines crawled over carved demons. Floodwaters swept away courtyards and outer shrines. Roofs collapsed beneath monsoon storms. But within the temple's heart, the spell remained unbroken. The dead walked in silent, rotting circles around a throne long abandoned by the living, but never by their souls. Raffaello knew only fragments of this legend. For in each cursed place lay treasures no sane priest or king would touch. Treasures that whispered promises in darkness. And for a man like him, that whisper was worth any price. Into the darkness, treading on bones and forgotten souls, Raffaello tightened his grip on the lantern handle. Its thin bronze frame rattling softly as he advanced deeper into the temple's bowels. The air thickened with each step, congealing around him like rancid oil. His boots scuffed across stone tiles, slick with moss and dampness, each footfall stirring up the sour stench of decay that rose from cracks beneath his tread. The grand hall opened before him in silent majesty. Massive pillars loomed on either side, carved with scenes of agony. Prisoners flayed alive. Bodies nailed upside down to sacrificial trees. Children crushed beneath stone altars. The carvings glistened with black mold and centuries of dripping humidity. Their cruel details softened only by rot and darkness. His lantern's glow fell upon the floor ahead, and his stomach clenched. A field of bones sprawled before him, tangled and broken, littering the marble like a white, twisted carpet. Femurs snapped in half, ribs splintered like rotting reeds, skulls caved in where centuries of falling rubble had smashed through them. Mummified scraps of flesh still clung to some bones. Dry, papery skin stretched tight over finger bones. Curled, he stepped forward. A brittle femur cracked beneath his heel, echoing like thunder within the silent hall. He froze, heart hammering, sweat dripping from his brow, despite the chill. The echoes died, swallowed by the oppressive hush, but another sound rose to replace them. A low, wet rustling, like silk dragged across damp stone, like grave worms shifting in a corpse's chest cavity. He raised his lantern higher, the flame trembling, shadows lurching and twisting across the pillars. In its flickering light, movement shimmered in the distance, dozens of pale shapes drifting between columns. Some crawling on hands and knees, others shuffling upright with broken necks lolling against their shoulders. Their skin glowed like rotting candle wax, slick with dark mold. 100 sighs that had waited centuries for breath to fill them once more. Raffaello swallowed the bile rising in his throat. Greed warred with terror within his chest. His eyes darted past the shambling corpses to the obsidian dais at the far end of the hall. There it stood, the black throne, veined with crimson, crowned by twin orbs of dark glass. The obsidian eyes, his prize, his curse. Taking another trembling step, he felt bones shift and grind beneath his boots, the sound rising to meet the rustling of the dead. Some crawled closer, dragging broken limbs through heaps of skulls, jaws creaking open in silent screams. Others only watched him pass, heads twitching in jerks too quick and insect-like to belong to anything human. As he reached the center of the hall, his lantern's light fell upon a corpse sprawled at his feet. A woman's skeleton. Thin arms curled around her chest, ribs shattered inward as if something had burst from within. Etched into her breastbone were black runes, crusted with dark resin and dried blood. Raffaello tore his gaze away, teeth chattering as he forced his feet forward. Each step a prayer whispered to gods he did not believe in. For beyond the bones, beyond the corpses, his prize awaited ash. And in that moment, greed burned hotter than fear. The dead awaken. Touching the forbidden altar, Raffaello's breath rasped in his throat as he reached the base of the obsidian dais. Close. The twin orbs atop the throne gleamed with an oily darkness, veins of crimson flickering within as his lantern's flame caught their polished curves. Shadows crawled across their surfaces like grasping fingers seeking escape. He licked his cracked lips, chest heaving with triumph and dread. Slowly, he set the lantern upon the dais, its glow illuminating carved runes that coiled around the throne's base, shapes that twisted the mind to look upon, as if each stroke were a writhing insect etched into stone. He reached out a trembling hand. The instant his fingertips brushed the cold, flawless glass of the first orb, a sound erupted through the hall that froze his blood to ice, a low, rattling moan. It began as a single voice, rising from the darkness beyond the throne. Then it was joined by another, and another, until the hall shook with a chorus of inhuman groans that clawed at the pillars, the ceiling, the bones beneath his feet. He spun around. They were moving, the dead. Where once they had drifted in silent circles, now their bodies jerked and twisted with grotesque animation. Heads snapped upright, jaws hanging open in muffled screams. Limbs spasmed as rotting muscles contracted with sudden violence. Some rose from their crawling, staggering to their feet with cracking knees and dislocated hips. Others collapsed forward, dragging themselves across the bones on shattered elbows and clawed fingertips. Their eyes glowed. A sickly green light burned within each empty socket, flickering like corpse candles in a catacomb wind. The glow pulsed in unison with each step they took, throbbing to a rhythm that had nothing to do with life. "No," Raffaello gasped, stumbling backward into the dais. His trembling fingers closed around the obsidian orb, cradling it to his chest like a desperate child clinging to a dying mother. The dead advanced. Their moans became whispers, ragged voices rasping from collapsed throats. Words in a tongue so ancient it predated the moon's first rising. Words of hunger, of worship, of chains that would never break. They surrounded the dais, pale arms outstretched, fingers curled into claws, nails black and cracked. Some dripped grave mold from gaping chest wounds. Others had no lips, their teeth bared in eternal, mindless snarls. All stared with burning eyes upon the orb clutched to Raffaello's chest. "Ka," he choked out, tears streaming down his filthy cheeks. "It's mine. You cannot take it from me." But even as he spoke, the shadows behind the throne thickened, coalescing into a shape that rose above him, tall and skeletal, crowned with a circlet of jagged gold. Its eye sockets blazed with twin infernos of green flame, its withered lips curling back to reveal fangs of polished obsidian. The Corpse King had awakened. Its voice rolled out into the trembling hall, a guttural, echoing roar that shook the bones beneath Raffaello's feet. "Return. What is mine?" The dead fell silent at their master's command, standing in a circle of rotting worship as Raffaello sank to his knees, clutching the obsidian orb tighter. The Corpse King leaned down, its stench flooding his senses with grave-sour rot and centuries of embalming resin. "Return, or join us forever." And Raffaello, blinded by terror and greed alike, could only scream as the dead closed in, their cold hands reaching to welcome him into their eternal procession beneath the black temple's rotting roof. Among the dead, Raffaello's desperate escape. Raffaello's scream echoed through the vaulted hall, bouncing off moss-slick pillars and vanishing into the black shadows beyond the flickering lantern glow. The corpse king's rotten stench filled his nose and throat, choking him with bile and terror. His fingers tightened around the obsidian orb, its surface throbbing with a cold that seeped through bone and marrow. Hands clawed at his cloak, nails ripping fur and leather, dragging him forward with inhuman strength. Their grip burned with a freezing rot that seared into his flesh. He wrenched free, stumbling backward over a tangle of rib cages and broken skulls. One corpse fell against him, its eyeless face pressed to his cheek. Its breath rattled out in a broken sob before it collapsed to the floor, twitching like a gutted fish. He ran, boots, cracked femurs beneath his feet. Splintered vertebrae rolled under his heels, almost sending him sprawling. He shoved aside rotting arms that reached for him, ducked beneath limbs, stiffened in death's final prayer. The dead turned as he passed, their glowing green eyes following him in silent condemnation. Mine, it's mine. He chanted between ragged breaths, the orb clutched tight to his chest. Ahead, the great pillars loomed like petrified giants, their carvings twisted in the trembling lantern light. Between them, the exit gaped, a black mouth leading into deeper halls, or perhaps back toward freedom. He could not remember. All that mattered was away from those burning eyes, away from the corpse king's looming shadow that scraped the ceiling with clawed hands of bone and withered tendon. Something seized his ankle. He pitched forward, slamming face first into the cold stone. Pain exploded behind his eyes. The lantern skittered away, rolling to a stop beside a corpse slumped against a pillar. Its face glowed in the trembling light. A woman's face, skin stretched tight across cheekbones, lips sewn shut with iron wire. Her eyes blazed green as her neck twisted with a wet crack to follow him. Raffaello kicked out, boot connecting with brittle fingers, snapping them like dead twigs. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing the lantern, chest heaving with sobs. Shadows twisted around him, the dead crawling closer. Some dragging shattered legs behind them, others looming upright with necks bent at impossible angles. He ran again, weaving between them, lanterns swinging wildly, casting mad shadows upon the moss-choked carvings. Wet whispers brushed his ears. Stay, stay, join us. His foot caught upon a skull, sending him sprawling once more. The lantern smashed against the floor, flame guttering out. Darkness swallowed him, thick and absolute. Only the green glow of the dead remained, dozens of burning eyes drifting closer, lighting the hall with a sickly corpse light. He clutched the obsidian orb to his chest, its cold, deeper now, sinking into his heart. Tears streamed down his face, hot against the frigid bite of the air. No, gods, no, I will not stay here. I will not. But the dead only reached for him, their hands cold as moonlit tombstones. As the Corpse King's voice rolled through the hall like a final judgment, all who take must serve. Raffaello forced himself to stand once more, ready to run until either freedom or death took him. Whispers of the damned, voices that devour hope. Raffaello stumbled through the endless hall, taintless, guided only by the flickering corpse light glowing within 100 dead eyes. His ragged breath echoed between pillars carved with writhing demons. The sound swallowed quickly by the oppressive hush that pressed in upon him like burial soil. Around him, the whispers rose. At first, they were faint, like moth wings brushing parchment, like wind sighing through catacomb cracks. But with each step, they grew louder, curling around him, slipping into his ears, sliding down his spine in cold, ticklish trails of dread. Thief, desecrator, flesh that still breathes. How warm you must feel. He pressed his hands over his ears, clutching the obsidian orb to his chest so tightly its edges bit into his ribs. But the voices came from within as well as without, vibrating through his bones, gnawing at his thoughts like worms feasting upon grave-soaked marrow. Stay with us. No pain here, only quiet. He fell to his knees upon shattered rib cages and cracked vertebrae, the bones grinding under his weight. Tears streamed down his cheeks, warm and salty, dripping onto the cold orb that pulsed with an inner darkness. The corpse light flickered around him, casting shadows that danced like broken puppets in the windless gloom. No, he sobbed. No, I will leave. I will take my prize and leave. The voices giggled then, high and brittle, like the snapping of old bones. Leave, leave. There is no leaving. There is only joining. He felt them pressing closer, the dead. Their cold, damp breath rasped across his neck. Hands caressed his face, their touch gentle yet impossibly strong. Fingertips peeling away dirt and blood with tenderness that made him shudder with horror. One voice, deeper than the rest, rumbled through the darkness, vibrating his very teeth. Your heart. It beats so loudly here, it calls to us. Would you give it freely, warm one? Would you let it still forever, as ours do? He screamed, lurching to his feet, slipping upon slick moss and bone shards. The orb nearly fell from his grip, but he clutched it tighter. It's cold now, searing into his flesh with icy fire. He staggered forward, eyes wide and blind in the green-lit dark. Ahead, shadows parted to reveal a corpse standing taller than the others. Its chest was split open, ribs peeled back like rotten shutters, revealing the hollow cavity within. And from within that darkness came a voice, not whispered, but spoken aloud, shaking the air itself. "Come to me, Raffaello di Castamar. You carry what is mine. You carry what binds you now." He tried to turn, to run, but his feet rooted to the bone-strewn floor. Tears blurred his vision as the dead gathered around him, eyes glowing, mouths opening in silent screams. The masked corpse reached out with skeletal hands, its fingers tipped with jagged obsidian claws. "Join us," it rasped, and Raffaello felt his sanity crack like rotting wood beneath an executioner's axe as the whispers closed in, devouring every last scrap of hope he had carried into this temple of endless night. The dark secret, the ritual of bound souls. Raffaello fell to his knees. The orb clutched against his chest, its cold sinking deep into his bones like a winter that would never end. The masked corpse towered, fangs outstretched, clawed fingers hovering inches from his face. Around them, the dead formed a silent circle, their glowing eyes unblinking, their ragged breaths weaving a funeral dirge in the stale, mold-sweet air. Behind the corpse king's throne rose a stone plinth, half-shrouded in rotting burial wraps and dark moss. Upon it lay an object that pulsed faintly with corpse light, a scroll bound with twisted sinew, its parchment the sickly yellow of old, tanned human skin. As the corpse king stepped aside, gesturing with one clawed hand, Raffaello felt his body dragged forward by invisible force. His knees scraped across cracked femurs and splintered ribs until he lay prostrate before the plinth. "Read," the corpse king rasped, its voice echoing through a dozen rotting throats that whispered the word alongside him. With trembling fingers, Raffaello reached out. The skin scroll was dry and warm beneath his touch, as though it retained the heat of whatever flesh it had been flayed from. Carefully, he unwrapped the sinew binding, revealing lines of jagged runes etched deep with obsidian knives and stained black with dried blood. He could not read the language, but meaning poured into his mind nonetheless, each word sliding like cold oil through his thoughts, branding knowledge into his sanity. The rite of binding. Take the living heart. Place it upon the throne of still flesh. Slice open its chambers with obsidian. Spill blood into the eye of Salacta. Place the eye within the chest cavity of the offered corpse. Whisper the name of the god that devours endings. Seal flesh with resin of myrrh and black lotus. Thus is a soul chained forever to its rotting shell. Thus does the dead walk. There will enslaved to the eye. The words seared him. Tears streamed down Raffaello's face, mixing with the sweat dripping from his brow onto the scroll's flayed skin. His chest burned with the orb's cold, the pain blooming outward like frost killing a spring blossom. This is how they did it, he gasped. This is how they trapped their souls. How they forced them to walk forever. The Corpse King lowered its face to his, its hollow sockets blazing with sickly green fire. Resin dripped from between its withered teeth as it hissed. The eyes belong to Zalakta. Those who touch them are bound, as they bound us. Raffaello's mind reeled. He tried to throw the orb away, but his fingers would not obey. The cold had fused it to his chest, black veins spreading from where it touched his flesh, creeping across his ribs beneath torn tunic and mail. "No," he sobbed. "Please, gods, no. I didn't know." But the whispers around him only laughed, brittle, papery laughter that rose and fell like funeral bells rung by skeletal hands. The Corpse King raised its arms high, claws scraping the darkness above. All who take must serve. All who steal must pay. The eye is the chain. You are ours. And as the chant rose from 100 rotting throats, the scroll slipped from Raffaello's nerveless fingers, curling closed upon the plinth once more. Its secrets sealed for the next thief, foolish enough to seek power within the temple of endless walking death. The death of Raffaello, a new servant joins the endless procession. Raffaello's screams tore through the temple's silent halls, echoing between pillars carved with writhing demons and flayed saints. The orb burned against his chest, its cold now molten, searing through flesh and bone with agony so pure it blinded him. He clutched at it with trembling hands, trying to rip it away. But where his fingers touched, his own flesh cracked and blackened, veins beneath skin turning dark as rotted roots. He felt his heartbeat slow, each thud weaker, fainter, as though the orb was drinking his life, pulsing with greedy delight. Around him, the dead watched in still silence, their glowing green eyes flickering with ancient hunger. The Corpse King stood closest, skeletal arms raised in invocation, clawed fingers weaving symbols of binding in the foul air. Its voice rolled out like thunder across a battlefield of corpses. Your heart is claimed. Walk now. Walk now, as we walk. Raffaello's vision dimmed. He felt the blood stilling in his veins, felt his lungs collapse like rotting bellows, felt his bowels loosen in death's final release. Yet he remained conscious, conscious to feel the agony shift into a deeper horror. He felt his body lifted. Cold hands gripped his arms and legs, carrying him across cracked marble, slick with centuries of grave mold. They laid him upon the dais before the black throne, upon burial wraps, stiff with dried resin and blood. The orb melted into his chest, its black veins wrapping around his ribs, sinking deep into his cooling heart. His eyes rolled upward, tears of blood leaking down his temples as the corpse king leaned close, its breath reeking of embalming pitch and century-dead lungs. "Rise," it whispered, voice echoing through his skull, searing his mind with darkness. "Rise, servant of Zalacta, and walk." And Raffaello rose. His limbs moved with unnatural stiffness, joints cracking as rotting tendons pulled taut. His chest burned with the orb's icy fire, each pulse sending a ripple of cold through his veins. He felt his heart beating again, not for life, but to power the spell now chaining him to his corpse. He saw his hands, gray and bloodless, fingertips blackening as necrosis crept inward. Felt his eyes sink into his skull, sockets filling with the sickly green glow of all who walked before him. Around him, the dead parted, making way as he stepped down from the dais on feet no longer truly his. Each footfall echoed with finality, a funeral drum calling him to join their endless procession. The corpse king raised its arms in welcome. A sigh rippled through the temple as the dead resumed their silent dance, drifting in slow circles around the throne. Raffaello fell into step among them, his rotting feet sliding across stone polished by centuries of walking death. In his mind, a single scream still echoed, his own, trapped forever within a body that could no longer voice it. And above that silent scream rose whispers curling through his soul like grave worms through an unburied corpse. Walk, 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 forever. And so he walked beneath a roof black with mold and moonless night, eyes glowing green in the endless dark. A new servant to a God who devours endings and denies the mercy of decay. The legend that endures. The temple's eternal procession. Centuries have passed since Raffaello di Castamar vanished into the jungle, seeking treasures hidden beyond the edge of human memory. Seasons came and went. Monsoons swept the temple roof into the earth. Vines strangled its outer shrines, and roots split marble altars like cracked bone. But within the grand hall, beneath the rotting dome, painted with eyeless gods and winged demons, the dead still walk. They drift through columns carved with scenes of flaying and impalement. Their footsteps whisper soft upon moss-choked stone. Their eyes burn with corpse light, cold green flames flickering behind sunken sockets. Some are clothed in funeral wraps, stiff with blackened resin. Others are naked, but for scraps of skin clinging to gray muscle, their bones gleaming beneath stretched flesh as they shamble forward in unending procession. And among them walks one who was not born to die here. His name is no longer spoken by living lips. His story is a ghost upon forgotten trade routes and overgrown jungle paths. But should you stand upon the threshold of the temple's great hall, you will see him, a tall figure draped in rotting traveler's cloak, once lined with fine fur, now blackened and crawling with corpse beetles. His eyes blazed the same sickly green as the rest, but within them remains a flicker of something more, a memory of greed, of ambition, of a final scream that still rattles unheard within his silent chest. He clutches an orb of obsidian fused into his ribs, veins of black spreading from its surface like petrified lightning. Each step he takes radiates a faint pulse of darkness through the hall, strengthening the runes that bind every soul to their decaying flesh. They say that on nights when the jungle falls silent and even the cicadas hold their breath, if you creep close to the temple's shattered gates and listen between the rustling vines, you will hear them, the sigh of 100 corpses walking, the wet scrape of flesh against stone, and beneath it all, a single voice whispering with an agony so deep it shakes the soul. Free me, but no freedom exists here. Only the endless procession, only the silent worship of a corpse king crowned in gold, seated upon his throne of obsidian, veined with blood. His eyes blaze with eternal hunger as he watches his servants walk their unending prayer around him, a prayer of death without decay, of suffering without silence, of time devouring itself in perfect rotting circles. And should you step inside to see them for yourself, to seek forbidden knowledge or treasures whispered of in market alleys and grave-robbing guilds, remember this: those who enter the temple of the walking dead leave only when their eyes burn with corpse light and their feet have learned the quiet, hopeless rhythm of eternity. Thank you for walking with me tonight through shadows where the dead still dream of breath, and temples where eternity is measured not by prayers, but by the endless shuffle of rotting feet upon silent stone. If this story sent chills through your bones, if you felt the cold darkness of the temple of the walking dead wrap around your thoughts, then its purpose is fulfilled. There are countless other forbidden truths and forgotten horrors waiting beneath grave soil and temple ruins. If you wish to continue exploring these dark histories with me, please like this video so that these tales may reach others who seek what slumbers beyond light, and subscribe to this channel to never miss the next chapter in humanity's hidden nightmares, lost cults, and eternal curses. Until we meet again beneath the flickering lantern's glow, remember, some temples never let you leave once you enter.